Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Hope
Morning.
everybody's good. Hope everybody's recovered from Yom Kippur. And of course, we go straight from Yom Kippur to the next holiday. Sukkot begins tomorrow night, so we're right back at things. That's generally how it goes. So a little bit of housekeeping. We're continuing our discussion about Shabbat and about what we need to do in terms of saying yes, in terms of embracing what is um, positive about Shabbat, about what we do. We'll talk about things we don't do at another point, but we're continuing on that part, the first part. So. The one thing I will tell you is that due to a commitment that I have at 10:30. I'm only able to do this class for 30 minutes today. So just apologies in advance that I can't do longer, or maybe maybe this is a gift. I don't know. Maybe you're gonna be glad to that it's gonna be a little shorter. So
Can we get
um,
our money back?
yeah, we can. I'll give you 200% back of what you paid. How about that?
That's a deal.
200% of zero, sure.
Mhm.
So no, it's all good. It's all good. So, but then but then next week I will be in Knoxville. So next week we can be in person in addition to on Zoom. So you could join me either way, and it should be for the full hour. So there shouldn't be anything preventing that. So just a little bit of housekeeping there. If you haven't already done that, I think most of you have, but if you haven't already and want to get uh, the links to this from YouTube and any handouts or graphics I might give, just leave your email in the chat, and I will include you on the list. So. All right. So I think last time we left off talking about Friday night, about what is possible and what makes Friday night, a great way to kick off Shabbat. And so now I want to get into Saturday. Um, now, uh, there is an extent to which I'm going to make the Saturday description shorter, at least when it comes to services, because I do want to talk about services sort of at as its own unit, prayer as its own unit, later on, in future sessions. But for now, I do want to at least give just a brief overview of what happens on Saturday morning. Saturday morning is uh, you know, Saturday morning services typically are the main activity of services are the main activity for a Saturday morning. And Saturday morning services, as I think I alluded to last week, they are sort of the main weekly service, certainly the most prominent weekly service that we have in the conservative movement. Obviously, certain holidays have their own prominence, um, but in terms of week to week, Saturday morning is really where it's at. And what makes Saturday morning services particularly significant is that structurally, it's not significantly different than a weekday morning service. Again, I'll talk about the differences between those at a future session. But uh, structurally, it's the same. We just add other things. So one of the heart of it is going to be the reading of the Torah. We read from the Torah scroll, um, and we do so um, by doing a portion of the Torah every week over the course of one year. As I talked about with Simchat Torah, the idea is to um, begin and end that Torah reading cycle um, at the same time, basically the same time every year. So we are nearing the end of that Torah reading cycle as we speak. Um, so some conservative synagogues read that entire Torah portion every week. Many conservative synagogues, ours included, read about one third of the Torah portion of the week each week. So why do we shorten it? Why would we only read one third of it? Well, some people still ask that today. Some people wish that the entire Torah portion were read in conservative synagogues every week. Um, Let me make a case for why we don't. One is that Torah reading, which is chanted in conservative synagogues, chanted from the scroll, usually done with, lovely music, um, is it's a very frontal activity, meaning the Torah reader reads from the scroll and everybody else listens. And a full Torah portion, even if the readers are reading very fast, might take close to an hour. It's a long time to be sitting and just listening to somebody else. It's not a very interactive activity. Um, so there's a concern that you might lose a lot of people in the room and lose their focus and lose whatever momentum you have gained from the rest of the service. The other advantage of the reading in what we call a triennial cycle, meaning, one third every year, and to read the entire Torah over the course of 3 years, is that it takes a little, it takes away some of the burden of preparing a Torah reading off the congregation. It takes a good chunk of that burden away. Um, the reason why I refer to it as a burden is that um, Torah portions are very timely or are very time consuming to learn. Um, they, and we could talk about this when we talk about, the Hebrew language, but the way that one reads Hebrew is all the letters are consonants and the vowels are dots and dashes found above, below, or sometimes even in the middle of letters. Torah scrolls do not have any vowels, nor do they have any punctuation, nor do they have any notation, any notations to tell you how to chant any particular word. So essentially, in order to prepare a Torah reading, you have to learn it from a book that has all the vowels and all the cantillation marks and all those sorts of things. And then you have to be able to remember all those things well enough to just read it from the scroll where you just have the letters, the consonants, and no vowels and no notation. So there's a bit of memorization involved. That's why it takes um, not only a lot of practice, but a lot of time. So to have to read the entire portion as opposed to only having to do one third of the Torah reading, you can imagine that um, getting people in a congregation to read from the Torah, even professionals, even Jewish professionals, you can tell that reading one third of it is a much um, more manageable burden, much more manageable challenge. So those are two reasons why we do that. Um, Now, I say that we would read one third of the Torah portion, but the idea is to, over the course of the week and specifically on Shabbat, to be learning or relearning about the entire portion. So I will give you an example. So the first portion of the book of Genesis, this portion is known as Bereshit, which is also the Hebrew word for the book of Genesis. The entire portion goes from Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through Genesis chapter 6, verse, I think it's through 6, verse 7 or 8, something like that. So that's 5 chapters and then a little bit. When this synagogue will read will read from the book of Genesis, read from that Torah portion on that Shabbat a couple weeks from now. The triennial reading is going to be chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 2, verse 3. So it is a much more manageable amount of Torah that is being chanted. With that said, then the idea is that over the course of the week and on Shabbat itself, to be reading, rereading, learning, talking about, commenting on the entirety of the Torah portion of Bereshit. One of the things that we ask Jews to do over the course of the week is to be familiar with the Torah portion that of that particular week. So when the rabbi or somebody else is giving a sermon about it, that people will say, "Oh yeah, I read that. That sounds pretty familiar." Um, the idea is to be engaged in Torah often, whenever we can, and to make Torah study a regular part of our lives. And that's one way we keep that on track. The idea is that if we are um, observing Shabbat in some sense every week, then every week we're going to learn something or relearn something, review something, get something out of the Torah every week. And over the course of the year, we will have familiarized and refamiliarized ourselves with the Torah. So the Torah is very much at the heart of the Shabbat morning service. Another thing that we do on Shabbat is we read what's called the Haftarah. The Haftarah has often been pronounced slightly differently. You often hear it being pronounced as the Haftorah. And oftentimes, the joke is, oh, why are we only doing half the Torah? Why aren't we reading the whole Torah? Right? That's the typical joke. So it's not. It's actually a different word. Haftarah is actually comes from a different root word than the word Torah. Haftarah basically means extra, and it's an extra reading. It comes from one of the books of the prophets, and it has to do whatever the Haftarah we are reading on a particular Shabbat is linked thematically either to the Torah portion of the day or of that Shabbat, or of a special occasion that is happening on a particular Shabbat. So why do we read also from the books of the prophets? Why also add a Haftarah? Well, we do it. I mean, there are a couple different reasons why, but one of the reasons why was because at the times when the Roman Empire was dominant in certainly in the land of Israel, there were times when the Roman Empire would forbid the study of Torah. So our people, ever adaptable, would figure out, well, we can't study Torah, but they didn't say anything about the prophets. So they would recite a reading from one of the prophets that had something to do with the Torah portion that would have been studied. And over the course of years, that custom stuck, and we have now made Haftarah a major feature of the Shabbat morning service. A Shabbat morning service takes a varied amount of time. The ones that I typically lead in Knoxville start at 9:45 and usually go till around noon. Some synagogues it might go a little longer. Sometimes it might go a little shorter. There's a contemporary service that that takes place sometimes on Saturdays at Heskamuna, led by Rabbi Shush Carson, and those services tend to go a little shorter. But the basic idea is to, whenever possible, finish around noon. Now, what's the religious significance of ending around noon? The religious significance of ending around noon is that it's lunchtime. That's a very religious activity. And so the idea is to then have what we usually refer to as the Kiddush, which is now Kiddush, at least, for a long time, Kiddush, having Kiddush after Saturday morning services literally meant having a little bit of wine or grape juice and maybe like a piece of cake or something like that, or a cookie or something like that, and then you went on your way. It has become more commonplace now for Kiddush to be a light lunch, or even in some cases a a have a like a full lunch. And one of the reasons that's come into practice is that, first of all, okay, we love our food, but second of all, it is an opportunity for socialization. And I know that there are many people for whom the Kiddush is the very highlight of attending services on Saturday morning. Now, obviously, we want people to be at services in addition to the Kiddush, right? I mean, if somebody showed up to the Kiddush without attending services at all, that would be considered kind of tacky, especially since it's a free lunch. It'd be a little tacky. Like, you need to be at the service at least a little bit before. Um, uh, but um, but the idea is that it's just a nice way to socialize, oftentimes to talk about, to kind of continue discussion about what was about themes that were talked about in the Torah portion, and sometimes it's just a way to catch up with people. So when by calling this session, Shabbat saying yes, um, this is one of those ways of like, what can we do on Shabbat? Well, we have this opportunity to see a lot of friends, a lot of people that a lot of people at the synagogue. So it's a very good thing. And so that's one feature of saying yes. Um, what happens on Saturday afternoon? Well, it depends on what your observance is. It depends on what your lifestyle is. Again, we're going to talk about some of the don'ts, probably starting next week, but um, of what you can do because of the things that you're not supposed to do on Shabbat, if one is being fully Shabbat observant, it means you can do things like rest, like take a nap, like take a walk, like catch up with friends and family. have conversations with them as opposed to texting or something like that. It purposely slows us down so that we can regenerate and refocus. Um, and when you think about it, it's pretty rare that we give ourselves the opportunity to unplug as much as Shabbat observant Jews do. Um, I found it very interesting that there's a group of people that I follow on like on YouTube and podcasts and such, and they're called the minimalists. And the one of the things that they talk about is trying to uh, that we should try to reduce our reliance on our phones, like a lot of people talk about. And so they said, how about we do this? How about we'll do screenless Saturdays? And I remember thinking to myself, that's awesome. Screenless Saturdays, that sounds great. We kind of thought of that a while ago. But that's okay. That's okay. They can take it. Like I don't mind, right? I mean, everybody could, everybody could do it. So it's totally fine. Um, and so by taking the command of resting on Shabbat seriously, we therefore give ourselves the opportunity to allow us to engage in many times in meaningful activities that we might not otherwise have the chance to do. By the way, a big activity on Shabbat afternoons are board games, card games, not for gambling purposes, but just for fun, right? I've had many a chess match, or I even I mean I some people would say that this is not really in the spirit of Shabbat, um, but I've played Monopoly Shabbat afternoon. It's not real money, but I've kind of I don't do that quite as much anymore because Monopoly is just such a terrible game. My opinion. Somebody may love it. It's not my favorite. Anyway, but you don't have to play Monopoly. You've got a lot of games that you can potentially play. So again, apologies for the truncated length of this session today, but again, we'll do a full hour next time. But I want to, before we finish, talk about about when Shabbat ends and what we get to do there. The conclusion of Shabbat is, the tradition says that it's when there are three stars in the sky on a Saturday night. Um, the idea is that the basic math to do is that it it's candlelighting time plus 1 hour, meaning let's say candlelighting time is at 7 p.m. Havdalah, the conclusion of Shabbat, would be at about 8 p.m. because we have to wait a little bit longer just to make sure that it's dark, just to make sure the Shabbat is over. So what does the word Havdalah mean? Havdalah comes from the verb lehavdil, which means to divide or to separate. And what are we dividing? We are dividing Shabbat from the rest of the week. We are making a distinction. That's probably a better word. We're making a distinction between Shabbat and the rest of the week. And there is a ritual known as Havdalah, which is a very brief ritual. I mean, it really only has to take a few minutes. And there are three symbols that are used. First of all, there is, it probably wouldn't surprise you, wine or grape juice. All right, you have that. The next item, though, is a spice box or a little bag of spices, some sort of spices. And then the third is a multi-wicked candle. Let me explain what all that means. Now, we talked about Kiddush, about at a Friday night service or at a Friday night dinner, you would say the Kiddush, you would say the prayer over the wine or grape juice to accept the sanctity of the day. To basically acknowledge we are acknowledging that Shabbat is, that we have begun Shabbat. When we say Kiddush, the prayer over the wine or grape juice, at Havdalah, we're acknowledging that we are concluding Shabbat. So again, it's another statement of acknowledgement. The spices, we are supposed to sniff some spices, something fragrant, in order to make sure that we are remembering the sweetness of Shabbat. As we are saying goodbye to Shabbat, we are remembering the sweetness thereof. And then the multi-wicked candle. And by the way, there are some beautiful braided candles that you can get for this purpose. The reason why you have more than one wick is that one wick represents Shabbat, and the other wick or other wicks represent the rest of the week. And by burning a multi-wick candle, even for a couple minutes during the Havdalah ceremony, by lighting all the wicks together, it means that it's this liminal moment where Shabbat and the rest of the week come together. And you have this brief moment where we are saying goodbye to Shabbat, welcoming the rest of the week. It is a very bittersweet moment. And because hopefully, you've had a lovely Shabbat, and that's tough to say goodbye to. But on the other hand, as I think I alluded to last week, Shabbat is more meaningful when we have a meaningful rest of the week. If we
Question.
have, sorry, yes, go ahead.
That bolt. I didn't know it's my first time. Anyway, uh, can you spell week? Like I'm trying to find a candle to buy so I can light it up for Shabbat.
So how would you light the Havdalah candle?
No, you said a specific kind of candle. Like that's what I
Oh,
understood it.
so it's a candle with multiple wicks.
Yes.
Well,
Is it
like so,
WIH?
yeah, WICK and then S, the plural. WICK and then S. So like the little little cloth that we light, the end of a candle, that's
Okay.
a wick, and
Uh-huh.
then and then wicks with
So
the
you
plural.
say multiple weeks on one candle. So let's say 7 weeks for 7 days, and light it separately, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, other days too. Thursday,
I
Friday.
mean, you could do that. You know what I should do next week. I can show you a photograph of it. I think it'll be a little clearer once I do that. So I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I have an obligation that starts right around now, I'm afraid we have to curtail this
I show you
session.
mine.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, Linda has one. And yeah, maybe put it up
No, let
closer to
me
the
take
camera.
it out.
Oh, take it out of the box.
I have one. I can show you.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Well, okay,
okay.
it's
I'm
worry.
afraid to
Let
light it
Linda.
because I'm afraid it's dangerous, so I never
Yeah, don't worry about lighting it. But you see, like
So that's
I
one.
like say the prayer and like point to it.
yeah, the different strands are braided.
I don't even know where the wick is. We're so far we are.
Yeah, but that's 1 week, right? That has 1 week.
So no.
And
Here, so again, next week I'll show you another picture of it, and hopefully it'll be clear with that.
Did you have a meeting or something now?
I do have a
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
Yeah, regarding one of my kids. So so it's
Okay.
okay. All right.
I missed the beginning, so I didn't hear you say that. I just put something in the chat. Or we
It's
have
okay.
a
No
three-week
worries. No
session. Yeah.
worries. All right. All right, very good. We will see you next week, and thanks so much, and we'll talk more about Shabbat then. So
Thank
thank